Kai took the pilot's seat, his cautious nature shining through in the precise adjustments to the controls. Launching in 3, Kai announced, his voice even. The shuttle shuddered free, the Reliant shrinking to a speck against the swirling purples and blues of the nebula. Tendrils of ionized gas curled like smoke, one striking plume illuminating the cockpit in ethereal violet. Mira whistled low. Beautiful but deadly. Those spikes Kai mentioned? They're pulsing like a heartbeat, artificial I'd bet. Alaire appeared at the scanner feed, the data scrolling in urgent red. The rendezvous point loomed ahead, a massive council station orbiting a gas giant, its spires glinting like teeth. But as they closed in, the spikes intensified, a low rumble vibrating through the hull. Shields at 80%, Kai reported, sweat beading on his forehead. Something's targeting us. Alarms blared. Alaire's mind raced. Ingenuity under pressure, that's what humans did. Evasive pattern delta. Mira, any life signs? Negative, Mira replied, her wits subdued. But energy readings off the charts. It's like the nebula's alive. The shuttle lurched as disruptor fire grazed their flank, the cockpit lights flickering in warning. Captain Elena Vasquez gripped the armrests of her command chair, the hum of the Odyssey's engines vibrating through the deck like a distant heartbeat. The view screen flickered with the incoming transmission from the Galactic Concordance, a sprawling hologram of stern alien faces arrayed in a semicircle. At the center loomed Ambassador Krell of the Vorath Collective, his chitinous mandibles clicking in what passed for impatience among his kind. Human vessel Odyssey, Krell intoned, his voice a synthesized rasp filtering through the translator. The Council has deliberated. Your species' aggressive expansion into the neutral sectors violates the Treaty of Epsilon. Cease all operations immediately. Surrender your armaments for disassembly at Outpost Zeta. Peace demands compliance. Elena's jaw tightened. Beside her, Lieutenant Marcus Hale, her ever-cautious engineer, leaned forward, his fingers drumming a silent rhythm on the console. They're bluffing, he muttered under his breath, eyes flicking to the sensor readouts. Scans show 3 Vorath cruisers shadowing us, cloaked but sloppy. If we drop shields now, we're driftwood. She shot him a glance, her voice low and steady. Noted. But we play this smart. Across the bridge, Dr. Lyra Voss, the xenobiologist with a wit sharper than her scalpels, arched an eyebrow from her station. Peace? That's Vorath code for submit or shatter. Remember what they did to the Arcturans? Disarmed them right into extinction. Elena straightened, activating her own feed. The bridge lights cast long shadows across her face, highlighting the faint scar from a boarding skirmish years back. Ambassador Krell, the United Earth Federation appreciates the Council's guidance. However, our operations in the neutral sectors are exploratory, not aggressive. Surrendering armaments without verification of intent would leave us vulnerable to piracy, hardly the peace you advocate. Krell's compound eyes narrowed, facets glinting like shattered obsidian. Verification? Your history speaks volumes, Captain. The Battle of Rigel Prime, the Orion incursions, humanity's explorations, always end in conquest. The Council orders stillness. Comply or face enforcement. The transmission cut abruptly, leaving the bridge in tense silence. Elena's mind raced. The Odyssey wasn't a warship, but her modular phaser arrays and the experimental gravitic drive could buy time. Still, 3 cruisers? Outpost Zeta was a Vorath stronghold, crawling with enforcers who'd stripped the ship to rivets. Options? She asked, swiveling toward Marcus. He pulled up a holographic schematic, the ship's layout blooming in blue light. We could reroute power to the stealth emitters, make a run for the nebula. But it'll strain the core. One misfire and we're venting plasma. Lyra chimed in, her tone laced with dry humor. Or we hail the Arcturon remnants. They've got grudges and ghost ships. Allies in the shadows. Elena waited, the weight of her crew, 50 souls, engineers, scientists, all betting on her grit. The nebula was a gamble, a swirling mass of ionized gas that could mask them or fry their sensors. But surrender? That was the real death sentence. Initiate stealth protocol, she decided, her voice cutting through the hum. Marcus, baby the core. Lyra, prep a distress ping on encrypted channels. Subtle, no screams. We're not delivering stillness. We're buying time to turn it around. As the Odyssey's hull shimmered into invisibility, the first Vorith cruiser decloaked on sensors, a predatory wedge closing in. Alarms chirped softly, and Elena felt the familiar surge, fear laced with fire. This wasn't just evasion, it was defiance, human style. Captain Ilara Voss gripped the armrest of her command chair as the Stellar Vanguard's bridge shuddered under another volley of disruptor fire. The view screen flickered, showing the swirling chaos of the nebula, glowing tendrils of gas that hid the enemy fleet like a shroud. Her crew, a tight-knit group of 4 humans who'd survived worse than this diplomatic debacle, moved with practiced urgency. Beside her, Engineer Tomas Ruiz wiped sweat from his brow, his fingers dancing over the console to reroute power. Shields at 40% cap. That last hit fried the auxiliary generators. Across the bridge, Navigator Lena Hart plotted evasive maneuvers, her sharp eyes narrowing at the holographic display. She was the cautious one, always calculating odds, but now her voice cut through the alarms like a knife. They're herding us toward the core. If we don't break free, we'll be nebula fodder, sucked into the gravity well. Lieutenant Kai Chin, the witty medic turned tactical officer in this pinch, snorted from his station. Hurting? More like inviting us to a party where we're the punchline. Council's, peace, envoy my ass. These Zifri want us silence before we even transmit the response. He patched a quick med scan to the crew, his humor masking the grit that kept morale from cracking. Ilara nodded, her brave resolve stealing her features. The Galactic Council had summoned Earth's delegation to broker peace amid the border skirmishes, but the Zifri ambush turned their shuttle into debris. Now, clinging to the Vanguard, the last human ship in the sector, they carried the real message. Not capitulation but a warning wrapped in human ingenuity. Tomas, can we weaponize the nebulous plasma? Turn their trap into our storm? Ruiz's eyes lit up, the cautious engineer revealing his bold streak. He pulled up schematics, fingers blurring. It's risky, could overload the engines, but yeah. If we vent the warp coils into the gas clouds, it'll ignite a chain reaction. Like lighting a match in a powder keg. The ship bucked again, sparks flying from a panel. Lena cursed under her breath, adjusting course with a sharp twist of the yoke. Incoming torpedoes. 3 minutes to impact. Kai leaned in, his voice low but urgent. Do it. Better a bang than begging. Ilara met his gaze, then Ruiz's, the weight of their isolation pressing in. No reinforcements, no escape pods left. Just them against a fleet that viewed humans as pests. She slammed the comm, all hands brace for ignition. We're not delivering peace, we're delivering the quiet they deserve. Ruiz initiated the sequence, the hum of the engines shifting to a dangerous whine. The nebula outside began to shimmer, plasma fields responding to the subtle pulse from the ship. Ilara watched the view screen as the first Zifri cruiser emerged from the clouds, its sleek hull gleaming with predatory arrogance. But then the plasma ignited, a brilliant cascade of blue fire erupting in controlled fury, slamming into the enemy formation. Alarms blared as the Vanguard lurched, the backlash rattling their bones. Lena fought the controls, sweat beading on her forehead. We're clear for now. But that stunt just painted a target on our backs. The whole sector will know. Kai patched a hull breach, his quip lost in the roar. Good. Let him come. We've got more where that came from. Ilara allowed herself a tight smile, the adrenaline fading to reveal the cost. Flickering lights, strained faces, and the lingering hum of a ship pushed to its limits. The Council's order for peace echoed hollowly now. Earth's reply was a stillness born of fire, and it had only just begun. As the nebula cleared slightly, revealing the battered remnants of the Zifri Vanguard drifting silently, she plotted their next move, a desperate jump to the nearest relay station, carrying the data that could shift the war's tide. But the fleet was regrouping, and the void whispered of harder choices ahead. The dim glow of the habitat module's emergency lights cast long shadows across the bulkheads, turning the once bustling command deck into a labyrinth of hushed uncertainty. Captain Ilara Voss gripped the edge of the console, her knuckles whitening as she scanned the readouts. The silence from the Council's fleet was absolute now, unbroken for over 12 hours. No hails, no sensor pings, just the faint hum of her own ship's life support systems echoing like a distant heartbeat. She glanced at Jax, her chief engineer, who was elbow-deep in a tangle of exposed wiring, his brow furrowed in concentration. "Any luck with the comms array?" Ilara asked, her voice steady but laced with the edge of impatience she'd honed over years of frontier skirmishes. Jax pulled back, wiping grease from his hands on his jumpsuit. "It's not fried, Cap. The signal's bouncing back clean, but whatever they're using to jam us, it's like shouting into a black hole." Earth's relay picked up the last transmission fine. "Peace enforced. Stand down." But now, nothing. Lieutenant Mira Kane paced the narrow aisle between stations, her boots thudding softly against the grated floor. The youngest of the trio, she carried the fire of untested resolve, her eyes darting to the viewport where the Council's armada hung in formation like silent sentinels. "They're not jamming us, they're ignoring us. The Council thinks we've blinked first. That stillness they ordered? It's a trap, lulling us into compliance while they consolidate." Ilara nodded, pushing off the console to join Mira at the viewport. The stars beyond framed the alien vessels, their hulls gleaming with the iridescent alloys of a dozen worlds. The Council had broadcast their decree weeks ago, universal disarmament enforced by a web of automated enforcers that could neutralize any ship's weapons in an instant. Earth had complied publicly, broadcasting surrender frequencies, but in the shadows of the Sol System's outer belts, human ingenuity had whispered otherwise. Stillness, not peace. Ilara's orders from command had been clear. Deliver silence, not submission. A low chime interrupted her thoughts, pulling her back to the console. Jack straightened. Incoming from the auxiliary probe. It's close to their flagship, picking up faint emissions. The screen flickered to life, displaying grainy telemetry. The probe's feed showed the Council's lead vessel, a behemoth of layered spires and energy lattices, drifting inert. No thruster flares, no patrol drones. Just stillness. Mira leaned in, her breath catching. "They're powered down. All of them?" "Scans confirm," Jax muttered, cross-referencing data. "Life signs nominal, but systems are in minimal standby. It's like they've gone into hibernation mode, waiting for our full capitulation signal." Ilara's mind raced. This was the opening they gambled on. The Council's enforcers relied on a synchronized quantum net, a flawless web of interlinked AIs that demanded perfect harmony to function. One discordant note, a subtle human hack embedded in Earth's surrender, and the whole thing unraveled. But the cost was steep. Their own fleet was blind without the probe's relay, and if the Council woke to the deception, retaliation would be swift, carving through human colonies like a plasma blade. "All right," Ilara said, turning to her crew with a grim smile. "Plan B it is." Jax, prep the stealth drone with the override payload. Mira, plot a course to slip us into their blind zone. Use the debris field from that old mining op. Jax hesitated, his tools clinking as he gathered them. "Cap, if this backfires, we're not just court-martialed. The Council's got kill switches on every human vessel in range. One wrong move, and we become the stillness they ordered," Mira finished, her voice sharp but her hands already flying over the navigation controls. "But if we pull it off, we rewrite the terms. Earth doesn't kneel, we stand quiet until they listen." Ilara watched as the ship shuddered faintly, aligning for the approach. The probe's feed cut out abruptly, leaving the deck in deeper shadow. Outside, the armada loomed larger, a graveyard of enforced calm. She felt the weight of it all, the lives back home counting on this gambit, the camaraderie that bound her team through the void. No speeches, just action. As the first wisps of the debris field brushed their sensors, Ilara settled into her chair, the rhythm of the engines a steady pulse against the encroaching quiet. The insertion was textbook at first. Myra's course wove them through tumbling rocks and derelict hulks, the ship's cloaking field bending light and emissions alike. Jax monitored the drone's launch from a side panel, its tiny form detaching with a whisper of compressed gas. "Away clean," he reported. "ETA to flagship docking port, 8 minutes." Ilara's fingers drummed the armrest, counting down in her head. Tension coiled in the air, thick as the metallic tang from the vents. Then, a stutter in the engines, a warning light flared red. "Proximity alert," Mira snapped. One of their patrol drones just lit up. It's not dormant, scanning the field. Jax cursed under his breath, slamming a fist on his console. The hack's not fully propagated. Their net's glitching, but that drone's on manual override. If it pings us, evade, Ilara ordered, her voice cutting through the rising alarm. Mira banked hard, the ship groaning as inertial dampers strained. Debris clanged against the hull, a staccato rhythm that matched Ilara's accelerating pulse. The drone's silhouette flickered on the tactical display, closing fast, its sensors sweeping like a predator's gaze. In the chaos, Jax isolated a vulnerability in the drone's shielding, rerouting a micropulse to scramble its scan. The dim hum of the shuttle's engines vibrated through the hull as Captain Elena Reyes gripped the armrest, her knuckles whitening against the worn leather. Outside the viewport, the asteroid field's jagged silhouettes twisted in the starlight, a graveyard of shattered rock that mirrored the fragile truce the Galactic Council had imposed. Her team, 3 humans and their reluctant alien liaison, Crix, had been dispatched to verify compliance on the Outer Rim, where the Vorith clan skirmishes had simmered down to uneasy silence. But Elena knew better than to trust the quiet. Peace, in her experience, was just the pause before the next storm. "Scans are clean, Cap," murmured Jax, her engineer, hunched over the console with a stylus tapping erratically. Sweat beaded on his forehead, not from heat but from the gnawing doubt that had plagued them since the Council's broadcast. Jax was the cautious one, always double-checking seals and calibrating sensors, his broad shoulders a testament to years in zero-G repairs. No energy signatures from the Vorith outposts. But that stillness, it's too perfect. Like they've all just stopped. Crix, the avian diplomat from the Council's neutral enclave, ruffled his iridescent feathers in agitation. Perched on the jump seat, his taloned feet clicked against the deck. The Council's edict was clear. All parties stand down. Your human ingenuity need not complicate matters. His voice carried that clipped formality, a shield against the unease Elena sensed in his darting yellow eyes. Crix had been assigned to keep the humans in line, but after 3 weeks of shared rations and evasive maneuvers, he'd started to thaw, just a fraction. Elena shot him a sidelong glance, her dark hair pulled back in a practical braid that spoke of efficiency over vanity. Complicate? We're here because your edict's about as effective as a screen door on a submarine. If they're not talking, they're plotting. She unstrapped and stood, stretching her legs in the cramped cabin. The shuttle banked slightly, dodging a tumbling boulder, and she braced against the bulkhead. Below them, the planetoid loomed, a barren rock pocked with mining scars from the Voritha's endless resource grabs. Jack straightened, rubbing his stubbled chin. Got something. Faint comms burst from the central dome. Encrypted, but it's Vorith code. And, wait. His fingers flew across the keys, the screen flickering with data streams. It's a loop. Same message repeating, surrender the core or face the void. That's not compliance, that's a standoff. Tension coiled in Elena's gut like a spring. The core in question was a geothermal stabilizer, vital for the clan's life support amid the planetoid's unstable crust. The Council's peace had frozen the negotiations, but if the rival Trellic faction had slipped in agents. She activated the intercom to the shuttle's hold, where their 4th member, Lena, the medic with a sharpshooter's steady hand and a wit sharp as her scalpel, was inventorying supplies. Lena, suit up. We're docking in 5. Looks like our quiet friends have company. Copy that, came Lena's voice, calm but edged with that familiar grit. Bringing the medkit and the persuader, just in case words fail. Crix squawked, wings half unfurling. This is not protocol. We observe, we report. Intervention risque escalation. Elena turned, her brown eyes locking onto his. Protocol got us this far, staring at a powder keg. If we don't act, the whole rim goes up. She didn't wait for his protest, striding to the airlock as the shuttle aligned with the docking clamps. The hiss of pressurization filled the air, and she sealed her helmet, the visor reflecting the cold void outside. They emerged into the Vorith outpost like ghosts in the low-grav corridor, boots magnetized to the grated floor. The air recyclers wheezed faintly, but the halls were eerily vacant. No patrols, no chatter over the vents. Elena led, pulse rifle slung low, her brave facade masking the nod of fear for what stillness truly meant. Jax trailed with a scanner humming softly, while Lena covered the rear, her cautious steps belying the determination in her grip. Crix fluttered behind, muttering council bylaws under his breath. The central chamber's doors ground open on emergency power, revealing a tableau that stopped them cold. Vorath warriors, hulking, scaled figures in battered armor, lay slumped against control panels, their weapons discarded. In the center, a Trellic infiltrator, sleek and bioluminescent, clutched a detonator, eyes wide with shock. But he too was frozen mid-gesture, as if time had snagged on a thorn. "What the hell?" Jax whispered, scanner beeping wildly. "No vitals. No struggle marks." They're paused. Elena approached cautiously, her boot nudging a fallen comm device. The looped message crackled, "Surrender the core." She knelt by a Vorath, checking for a pulse. Nothing. Yet their chests rose and fell in shallow, synchronized rhythm, as if held in some unnatural suspension. Crix's feathers bristled. "This is not peace. This is abomination." His voice trembled, the first crack in his diplomatic armor. Lena knelt beside her, gloved hand probing the infiltrator's neck. "Bioscan says they're alive, but neural activity's flatlined to minimal. Like a coma but induced. We've got intruders in our piece, all right? Someone's turned the whole damn place into a statue garden." Elena's mind raced, piecing the puzzle. The Council's order for stillness. Earth's delegation had been tasked with enforcement, their classified tech a subtle countermeasure woven into the compliance signals, designed to induce temporary stasis on non-compliant outposts. But this was deeper, a rogue escalation that trapped friend and foe alike. Captain Ilara Voss gripped the railing of the observation deck, her knuckles whitening as the stars blurred into streaks outside the viewport. The Aurora's engines hummed a low protest, pushing them deeper into the fringes of the Kalar Nebula. Beside her, Dr. Harlan Reyes adjusted his glasses, his face illuminated by the glow of a holographic map flickering between them. "The readings are stabilizing," he said, voice steady but edged with caution. "Whatever the Council meant by stillness, it's not just rhetoric. Look at the energy signatures, they're flatlining across the board." She nodded, not taking her eyes off the nebula's swirling purples and indigos, like ink bleeding through water. The mission had started with Hope, Earth's first envoy to the Galactic Concord, tasked with enforcing the Council's edict of peace after centuries of interstellar skirmishes. But the orders had come garbled through translation matrices, deliver stillness instead of mere negotiation. Now, with the rival fleet from the Vorath Collective closing in, Ilara wondered if the humans' literal interpretation would be their salvation or undoing. Lieutenant Kai Trent burst onto the deck, his boots clanging against the metal grating. Sweat beaded on his brow, and he clutched a data slate like a shield. "Captain, the probe's back." It confirmed the anomaly. The Vorath ships are drifting, engines cold. No comms, no weapons hot. It's like they've stopped. His witty grin faltered, replaced by a flicker of unease. Kai was the crew's spark, always quick with a quip to cut tension, but even he couldn't joke away the silence echoing from the void. Ilara turned, her brave resolve hardening her jaw. "Show me." The hologram updated with the probe's feed. A dozen Vorath cruisers, sleek and predatory, hung motionless amid the nebulous tendrils. No life signs registered, not even the faint hum of auxiliary systems. It was as if the ships had been paused mid-breath, in the heart of what should have been a chaotic ambush. Harlan leaned in, fingers dancing over the interface. "This matches the pattern from the outer colonies. The stillness wave, our tech disrupted their neural links. The Council's peace protocol, jury-rigged with human quantum dampeners. But it's not clean, look at the feedback loops." A secondary scan revealed microfractures in the Vorath hulls, energy bleeding out like slow wounds. The risk was real. One wrong pulse and the nebula's volatile gases could ignite, turning stillness into a graveyard fire. "We can't leave them like this," Kai said, crossing his arms. "The Vorath aren't monsters, they're just aggressive negotiators. If we pull the plug too soon, they'll swarm us." He paced, his cautious side emerging in the way he glanced at the viewport, as if expecting the ships to lurch back to life. Elara waited, the weight of first contact pressing on her shoulders. The plan had been simple: deploy the dampeners to enforce a truce, buying time for diplomacy. But the early test on a scout vessel had backfired, locking the crew in stasis instead of just halting their advance. Now, with the full fleet vulnerable, hesitation meant war. Harlan, can we modulate the wave? Wake them selectively, start with their command ship. The doctor frowned, running simulations. Lines of code scrolled like falling rain. Possible but tight. The nebula's interference will amplify any error. One spike and we lose the whole array, or worse, it rebounds on us. His voice carried the earnest grit of a man who'd spent years in labs, turning human ingenuity into tools that bent the stars. Kai stopped pacing, eyes lighting with a spark. What if we use the Aurora's auxiliary thrusters? Create a localized eddy in the nebula, channel the wave like a river bend. Buys us precision without overloading the core. Elara met his gaze, the camaraderie in the air thickening like the nebula's fog. It was a gamble, born of shared late-night shifts and muttered strategies in the mess hall. Do it. Harlan prepped the modulation. Kai, you're on thrusters, keep us steady. She straightened, the deck vibrating with renewed purpose as the nebula closed in, promising either breakthrough or oblivion. Scion settling like armor. As the team scattered to stations, Elara lingered at the viewport. The Vorath flagship loomed larger now, its silence a canvas for what came next. A single tendril of nebula gas curled toward them, glowing faintly as if the void itself held its breath. The wave initiated with a subtle thrum through the deck plates, and the first faint signal stirred, not chaos but a tentative quiet, the kind that might precede understanding. But in the distance, another shadow moved, unaccounted for, hinting that stillness was no guarantee against the gathering storm. Captain Alex Rivera gripped the edge of the console, his knuckles whitening as the shuttle shuddered through the ion storm. The viewport ahead was a blur of crackling purple veins, each fork threatening to shear off a wing. Hold her steady, Miko, he said, voice low but firm, the kind that cut through panic without raising. Miko's hands danced over the controls, her fingers a blur on the jury-rigged panels. Sweat beaded on her forehead, but her eyes stayed sharp, calculating. I'm rerouting power from life support. It'll get us through, but don't breathe too deep for the next 5 minutes. She flashed him a grin, quick and defiant, the sort that said she thrived on the edge. Behind them, Lyra clutched her harness, her iridescent scales paling under the emergency lights. The alien diplomat's mandibles clicked softly, a nervous tick Alex had learned to read over the past weeks. This is folly, she murmured, her translated voice a whisper of wind through reeds. The Council's edict was clear: observe, do not engage. If we breach the blockade, the fragile truce unravels. Alex didn't turn. Truce? That's what they call it when one side starves the other into submission. The shuttle bucked again and he braced as alarms wailed. The plan had seemed solid back on the outpost. Slip past the enforcer ships, deliver the water purifiers to the underground reservoirs before the rival faction poison them. Human grit against alien bureaucracy. But the storm had rolled in unannounced, turning the approach into a gauntlet. A proximity alert blared. Miko's console lit up with red, 3 interceptors closing fast, their signatures unmistakably Vexery, the Council's iron-fisted peacekeepers. They're hailing us, she said, tapping to mute it. Not in the mood for chit-chat? Never are. Alex punched in evasive maneuvers, the shuttle groaning as it banked hard. The lead interceptor fired a warning shot, a lance of energy that scorched past the hull. Heat rippled through the cabin and Lyra let out a sharp hiss. We must respond, she insisted, unclipping her harness despite the turbulence. I am authorized to negotiate later. Alex's jaw set. He'd seen what happened when words failed on worlds like Epsilon Prime. Dried riverbeds choked with bones, families turned to dust. Earth's delegation wasn't here to watch history repeat. Miko, deploy the decoy drones. Buy us some breathing room. She nodded, launching the cluster from the underbelly. Tiny sparks against the storm, they mimicked the shuttle's signature, scattering like chaff in the wind. The interceptors veered, pursuit splitting as they chased ghosts. For a heartbeat, clear sky beckoned, or what passed for it in the nebula's haze. But the storm had teeth. A massive ion surge hit, frying the shuttle's NAV systems. Lights flickered, consoles sparking. Miko cursed in 3 languages, slamming a fist on the manual override. We're blind. Dropping to emergency thrust. Alex scanned the flickering readouts. The reservoirs were close, too close to abort. Push it. Lyra, get on the comms. Tell the ground team we're incoming hot. Lyra hesitated, her compound eyes reflecting the chaos, then activated the link. This is Diplomat Lyra of the United Council. We carry aid for the neutral zones. Cease fire, the response crackled through, a Vexery commander's gravelly tone. Aid is contraband. Surrender or be neutralized. The shuttle broke through the storm's edge, engines whining in protest. Below, Epsilon Prime's surface unfolded, a cracked expanse of red dunes, dotted with makeshift camps. Smoke rose from the central spire, where the rival faction had entrenched. Alex's plan hinged on precision now. Land, deploy the purifiers, vanish before the enforcers regrouped. But as they descended, a ground battery lit up, anti-air rounds stitching the sky. One clipped the tail, sending them into a spin. Alarm screamed. Miko wrestled the controls, her face a mask of focus. Brace. We're going down hard. The impact jarred through Alex's bones, the shuttle skidding across sand in a plume of dust. Silence fell, broken only by the hiss of escaping steam. He unstrapped, checking for injuries, bruised ribs, nothing fatal. Miko was already up, toolkit in hand. Lyra groaned, waving off help with a trembling claw. Outside, the wind howled, carrying the distant rumble of approaching enforcers. Alex shouldered the purifier crate, its weight a promise of water from barren stone. We adapt. Ground teams 2 clicks east. Move. They slipped into the dunes, shadows among the ripples, the stillness of the desert mocking the council's hollow peace. But in Alex's mind, stillness wasn't surrender, it was the calm before humanity's next move. Elena crouched behind the jagged outcrop of crystalline rock, her breath steady despite the acrid tang of ionized air burning her lungs. The council's peace envoy had crumbled hours ago, reduced to a smoldering crater where the orbital platform once hovered. Now the real war whispered through the canyons of Zorith Prime, silent drones slicing the thin atmosphere, hunting the survivors. Her team, just Kai, the avian diplomat with feathers ruffled into a perpetual scowl of caution, and Marcus, whose scarred hands gripped his makeshift pulse rifle like an old grudge. They're closing the net, Marcus muttered, peering through his visor at the flickering scan. His voice was gravel, worn from too many battles the council had tried to paper over with edicts. A drone whirred closer, its shadow flickering like a predator's blink across the violet sands. Elena signaled, wait. They jury-rigged a jammer from salvaged Envoy tech, meant to spoof the drone's signals and by time to reach the extraction shuttle buried under the eastern ridge. Simple plan, infiltrate, overload the enemy relay, slip away. But nothing on Zorith was simple. Kai's talons clicked nervously on the rock. Human optimism. Your simple always invites complication. His beak clicked in what passed for a wry chuckle among his kind, but his eyes, sharp golden slits, darted to the horizon where the rival clan's mothership loomed, a behemoth blotting out the twin suns. The council had ordered peace. The Krell had laughed, deploying their swarm to enforce a different kind of quiet. Earth had sent Elena's unit not to negotiate, but to ensure the stillness stuck. She nodded to Marcus. Light it up. He triggered the jammer, a low hum vibrating through the ground. For a heartbeat, the drones faltered, their paths weaving erratically like startled insects. Elena bolted forward, boots crunching over shards that sang underfoot, a single piercing note that echoed her pulse. They dashed toward the relay tower, a spindly spire pulsing with Krell energy webs. Halfway there, the jammer sputtered. Marcus cursed, slamming his fist against the device strapped to his back. Feedback loop, it's frying itself. The drones recovered, zeroing in with lethal precision. One peeled off, firing a plasma lance that vaporized a boulder mere feet away, showering them in superheated dust. Elena dove, rolling to her feet as Kai flapped awkwardly for cover, his wings clipped by council regs against aggressive posturing. Plan B, she barked, mind racing through contingencies. The original hack was out, too exposed now. Marcus covered them, his shots cracking the air, short bursts that downed one drone in a burst of sparks, its wreckage tumbling like a felled star. But more came, a murmuring hive. Elena spotted a weak point, the tower's base shielded but vulnerable to a directed EMP from their last grenade. Risky, could black out the whole valley, stranding them without comms. Kai hesitated, feathers bristling. That will silence everything. Our shuttle too. His caution was his anchor, the voice of 1,000 failed treaties. But Elena saw the grit in Marcus's nod, the unspoken trust forged in Earth's backwater training grounds. Do it, she said. Marcus lobbed the grenade, a perfect arc over the chaos. It detonated at the base with a thunderclap, blue fire licking up the spire. The relay screamed, then died, drones plummeting like rain, the mothership's lights flickering in distant confusion. Silence fell, heavy as the dust settling around them. But as they pushed toward the ridge, Elena's scanner pinged. The EMP had rippled further, frying the shuttle's core. No extraction. The stillness they delivered was absolute, trapping them in its embrace. Marcus wiped sweat from his brow, rifle still hot. Well, Captain. What's the human miracle now? She scanned the horizon, the canyon stretching like veins toward the Krell heartland. No miracles left, just grit and the long walk ahead. Kai fell in beside her, his caution yielding to resolve. The council's peace was a whisper, Earth's stillness roared on. Elena crouched behind the jagged outcrop of iridescent rock, her breath steady despite the acrid sting of sulfur in the air. The planet's twin suns beat down like accusatory eyes, casting long shadows that danced with the haze of distant explosions. Jax was at her side, his fingers flying over the makeshift console jury-rigged from scavenged parts, a tangle of wires and glowing alien tech that hummed faintly under his touch. This better work, he muttered, wiping sweat from his brow with the back of his hand. Last time I patched a shield like this, it fritzed and nearly cooked us both. Zorak huddled nearby, his elongated limbs folded tight against his body, the bioluminescent veins on his skin pulsing with anxious blue light. The diplomat's caution had kept them alive this long, but now it bordered on paralysis. We should wait for the council's reinforcements, he whispered, his voice a sibilant hiss through the translator. This stillness you've promised, Captain Ruiz, it's madness. The Vexery won't negotiate if we provoke them further. Lyra, ever the scout, peered over the edge, her furred ears twitching at the low rumble of approaching engines. She was the wild card, her species' natural affinity for stealth making her invaluable, but her impatience often sparked arguments. Wait? And let them glass this outpost? No. Humans don't wait, they adapt. She glanced at Elena, a spark of admiration in her golden eyes. Your plan's bold. Risky but bold. Elena nodded, her grip tightening on the pulse rifle. The external challenge had started as a simple resource shortage. The Vexery blockade cutting off vital dilithium crystals needed for the Council's peace fleet. But it had escalated into this. A desperate stand on Epsilon 7's fractured surface, where seismic instability threatened to swallow them whole. Their early plan to hack the blockade's comms had backfired spectacularly, alerting the Vexery to their position and stranding them here with failing life support and a dwindling power core. Jack's status? Elena asked, her voice low and commanding, the brave core of her shining through in the way she locked eyes with each of them, forging that unspoken camaraderie that humans wielded like a weapon. Shields at 60%, he replied, his wit surfacing in a grim smile. Enough to buy us a conversation, maybe? Or a really short fight. He tapped a final sequence and the console beeped affirmatively. A shimmering barrier flickered to life around their position, distorting the air like heat off a desert road. The Vexery skimmers crested the ridge, sleek vessels humming with predatory grace, their hulls scarred from a dozen skirmishes. A hail of plasma bolts rained down, sizzling against the shield in bursts of violet fire. Elena's heart pounded, but she kept her stance firm, signaling Lyra to flank left while Zorak monitored the seismic readings on his datapad. Their probing, Lyra called back, darting low and vanishing into the rock formations. Her movements were fluid, a blur of tawny fur against the gray landscape. Moments later, a skimmer veered off course, its engines whining as she planted a disruptor mine, human ingenuity meeting alien agility. Zorak's lights flared red. Tremors incoming. The blasts are destabilizing the fault line. His caution rang true, the ground shuddered beneath him, cracks spiderwebbing outward like veins of lightning. Elena felt the vibration through her boots, a reminder of the real cost. Lose this outpost and the peace talks collapsed, dooming entire systems to war. Jax cursed, rerouting power from non-essentials. Shields holding, but if that fault gives, it won't, Elena cut in, her grit pulling them forward. She activated the comms burst they'd prepared, not a weapon but a clever adaptation of human signal tech, broadcasting a false surrender laced with a viral code to jam the Vexary's targeting arrays. It was stillness delivered not through destruction, but subversion, make their enemies blind, force them to the table. The lead skimmer faltered, its weapon stuttering as the code took hold. But then the ground heaved violently, a chasm yawning open mere feet away. Rocks tumbled into the abyss, and Zorak slipped, his cry echoing as he clawed for purchase. Elena lunged, grabbing his arm just as the edge crumbled. "Pull!" she grunted, muscles straining, Jax rushing to help haul the alien to safety. Lyra's shots pinged off the remaining skimmers, buying them seconds. In that chaos, the Vexary commander broadcast a demand, "Surrender the crystals or we bury you all." Elena's response crackled back, calm amid the roar. "Peace isn't surrender. It's this." She triggered the final sequence, a low-frequency pulse from their core, tuned to resonate with the planet's faults. Not an explosion but a controlled harmonic, sealing the chasm and disrupting the Vexary's landing zone without a shot fired in rage. The skimmers retreated, engines fading into the haze, but the cost lingered. Their own power core flickered, life support down to hours. Zorak steadied himself, his lights shifting to a wary green. You turned the planet against them. Ingenious. Terrifying." Jax chuckled weakly, slumping against the rock. "That's us. Delivering stillness, one quake at a time." As the suns dipped lower, casting the outpost in bloody light, Elena scanned the horizon. The blockade might hold, but they'd bought time, earned through sweat and choice. Yet the tremor scars etched the ground, a tangible warning that peace, human style, always carried echoes. Elena gripped the railing of the shuttle's cramped cockpit, her knuckles whitening as the vessel shuddered through the nebula's ionized haze. The stars blurred into streaks outside the viewport, but her focus stayed on the holographic display flickering before her. Jax hunched over the console beside her, his fingers dancing across the controls with that familiar, reckless precision. Sweat beaded on his forehead, catching the dim red emergency lights. "Almost there," he muttered, voice tight. "The dampening field should mask us for another 5 minutes. If Zira's intel holds." Zira, strapped into the jump seat behind them, let out a low, resonant hum, her species equivalent of a sigh. Her multifaceted eyes reflected the console's glow, unblinking. "It holds. The Council's patrols are blind to human signatures in this soup. But the core chamber, it's a fortress. One wrong move and their guardians will unravel us." The shuttle lurched, engines whining as they skimmed the edge of a gas giant's gravitational pull. Elena felt the pull in her gut, a reminder of how far from home they were. The Council had demanded peace, their edict broadcast across the quadrant like a divine decree, end the wars or face oblivion. But the fractured alliances among the Krell, the Vorith, and a dozen others had only escalated. Earth, ever the outlier, had responded not with diplomats but with ingenuity. A device to enforce stillness, not metaphorical quiet but literal cessation. No motion, no sound, no life to perpetuate conflict. The stillness emitter, they called it. A human marvel, born of quantum entanglement and brute force engineering. 2 minutes to docking, Jax announced, his wits subdued by the stakes. He wiped his brow with the back of his hand. "If this backfires, Cap, at least we'll go out famous. Earth's finest, turned to cosmic dust." Elena shot him a glance, her brave facade cracking just enough to show the steel beneath. Save the epitaphs. We're not dust yet. She unstrapped, moving to the rear compartment where the emitter hummed softly in its cradle, its sleek casing etched with warning runes from 3 languages. The plan had been simple at first. Infiltrate the Council's nexus on Epsilon Prime, deploy the device in the central chamber, and let it propagate. Piece through enforced inertia. But the early insertion had failed spectacularly. Zira's Vorath contacts betrayed them, forcing a detour through the nebula and leaving their backup team scattered. Now, with the core shields thinning under the nebula's interference, they had one shot. Elena hefted the emitter's portable activator, a fist-sized orb pulsing with contained energy. Zira, you're on point for the breach. Jax, cover our exit. No heroics, just get us in, plant it, and ghost. The alien nodded, her cautious nature evident in the deliberate way she checked her harness. The Guardians sense vibrations. We move silent or we do not move at all. The shuttle docked with a muffled clang against the underbelly of the Nexus station, a colossal ring orbiting the gas giant like a watchful eye. Airlocks hissed open, and they spilled into the maintenance corridors, dim, echoing tunnels lined with pulsating conduits. Elena's boots patted softly on the grated floor, the air thick with the scent of ozone and alien flora from the life support vents. They advanced in formation, Zira's elongated form gliding ahead, her bioluminescent markings dimmed to near invisibility. A junction loomed, guarded by a single sentinel drone, its sensors whirring lazily. Jax slipped a microdisruptor from his belt, a human gadget no bigger than a thumb drive. He tossed it underhand, it latched onto the drone's chassis with a faint click. Sparks flew silently and the machine slumped, inert. Nice throw, Elena whispered, a flicker of camaraderie easing the tension in her chest. Jax grinned faintly. Years of bar darts on Luna. Pay off. Deeper in, the corridors widened into vaulted halls, the walls alive with holographic murals of past accords, faded now, cracked by the endless squabbles. Tension coiled as they neared the core chamber's antechamber. Alarms remained silent, but Elena's instincts screamed. Zira froze, her head tilting. Vibrations ahead. Patrol closing. They ducked into an alcove, hearts pounding in unison. Footsteps echoed, multiple armored Vorath enforcers, their chitinous forms clanking past, discussing the human intruders in guttural bursts. The Terran's device, it mocks the decree. Stillness is death, not peace. Elena exchanged a look with Jax. The cost was sinking in deeper. This wasn't just stopping a war, it was rewriting the galaxy's pulse. But retreat wasn't an option. The Council's fleets were mobilizing and Earth's colonies hung in the balance. As the patrol passed, Zira signaled. They pressed on, the chamber doors looming like ancient gates. Jax hacked the panel, his tools beeping softly. The doors parted with a whisper, revealing the heart of it all. A vast dome where the Council's avatars floated in stasis, their collective will encoded in crystalline spires. Elena stepped forward, activator in hand. But a shadow detached from the gloom, a lone guardian, not machine but flesh, its eyes glowing with augmented fury. It lunged, claws extended. Jax reacted first, tackling it midair. They crashed into a spire, shards raining down. Elena whirled, firing her stun prod, but the guardian shrugged it off, its hide reinforced. Zira's caution gave way to action. She unleashed a sonic pulse from her throat, staggering the beast. Plant it! Jax yelled, grappling desperately. Elena dashed to the central pedestal. Slamming the activator home, Captain Alara Voss gripped the console edge as the shuttle shuddered through the debris field, the void outside a graveyard of twisted hulls. Her knuckles whitened against the worn metal, but her voice stayed steady. Status Reyes? Engineer Reyes wiped sweat from his brow, fingers flying over the flickering diagnostics. Shields at 20%. That last pulse from the Council's enforcer ship clipped us good. We're leaking Atmo in the rear bay, but I can patch it if we buy 10 minutes. Beside her, the alien diplomat, Krelon, clutched his translator orb, his iridescent scales dulled by the dim emergency lights. His 4 eyes darted to the viewport, where the massive Council flagship loomed like a slumbering behemoth, its weapon arrays charging with an ominous hum that vibrated through the hull. "This is madness, Voss." The High Council commanded peace. "Your stillness, it will shatter the accord." Elara shot him a glance, her jaw set. "Peace through words hasn't stopped the border raids, Krelon. We've seen your archives. Centuries of fragile truces broken by the first show of weakness. Earth didn't send us to negotiate, we came to ensure it sticks." She turned back to the controls, plotting a vector that skimmed the edge of the debris. The plan had been simple. Infiltrate the flagship's command core, upload the viral code that would disable their fleet-wide comms and weapons without a shot fired. Stillness, not slaughter. But the Enforcer ship had anticipated them, forcing a dogfight that left their wingman, a cocky pilot named Jax, adrift and silent. The shuttle bucked as another energy lance grazed them, sparks erupting from a panel. Reyes cursed, slamming a fist on the override. "Incoming. Evasive now." Elara yanked the yoke, the ship spinning into a barrel roll that pressed them into their seats. Alarms wailed, red lights pulsing like a frantic heartbeat. Through the chaos, she caught sight of Jax's pod beacon flickering on the scanner, alive but barely. "Reyes, can we tractor him in?" He shook his head, rerouting power. "Not without dropping shields. We'd be vapor." Krelon's voice rose, a rare edge of panic cracking his usual calm. "You humans and your grit. It blinds you. The Council will label this treason, your world's isolated, blockaded." She ignored him, eyes narrowing on the tactical overlay. The flagship's defenses were a web of automated drones, but the debris offered cover, if they could thread it. "New plan. We use the junk to mask our approach. Reyes, rig the cargo pods to detonate on my mark. It'll look like a chain reaction from the battle, draw their fire." Reyes nodded, already splicing wires, his cautious nature yielding to the fire in her eyes. "Risky. If it chains wrong, we're part of the mess. Better than floating dead." Elara punched the thrusters, the shuttle diving into the metallic storm. Chunks of wreckage tumbled past, silent sentinels to the skirmish that had preceded their arrival. One drone buzzed close, its scan beam cutting through the gloom, but she jinked left, letting a shattered spar shield them. Krelon leaned forward, his mandibles clicking. "And if we succeed? What then? Your code silences their voices, their guns, but the galaxy hears the echo. Fear, not peace." Elara's lips quirked in a grim smile. "Fear of stillness is a start. Let them learn what happens when words fail." The first pod ejected, blooming into a fireball that lit the void, pulling a swarm of drones away. Jax's beacon stabilized as they closed in, the tractor beam humming to life. But as they latched onto his pod, the flagship's main battery swiveled, locking on with a targeting ping that echoed in their ears. Reyes' patch held, but the strain showed, consoles sparking, air growing thin. Elara's mind raced. One more push or they'd all end as debris. She keyed the comms, voice low. "Hang on, Jax. We're bringing you home." The explosion chain rippled outward, a cascade of fire that masked their final dart toward the flagship's underbelly. Drones scattered, the Enforcer ship veering to pursue phantoms. For a heartbeat, silence reigned in the cabin, broken only by the creak of straining hull. Krelon stared, his eyes wide. "You adapt like water through stone. But the cost?" Elara didn't answer, guiding them into the docking port's shadow. The viral upload waited, a digital ghost ready to enforce the quiet Earth demanded. Yet Jax's vitals flickered weakly, a reminder that stillness came with its own graves. Captain Elara Voss gripped the railing of the bridge, her knuckles white against the cold metal. The view screen flickered with the aftermath. The Zyron fleet, once a swarm of jagged silhouettes blotting out the stars, now drifted in silent formation. No engines flared. No weapons hummed. Just hulls tumbling lazily, crews inside frozen in a hush that echoed across the void. "Status on the pulse?" she asked, her voice steady but laced with the grit of exhaustion. Beside her, Engineer Kai Ramirez wiped sweat from his brow, his fingers still smudged with the residue of hasty repairs. "Clean deployment," Kai replied, glancing at the console where readouts scrolled in green. "The quantum dampener worked better than we simulated. Their neural links are offline, whole ship's worth of minds locked in stasis. No casualties, but they'll be out for hours. Maybe days. Ilara nodded, her eyes scanning the bridge. Lieutenant Mira, the council's liaison, stood rigid at her station, her iridescent scales paling under the dim lights. The alien's mandibles clicked softly, a sign of unease Ilara had learned to read over the months of this uneasy alliance. "You humans," Mira said, her translated voice carrying a tremor. The council demanded peace. This is not mediation. It's domination wrapped in silence. Ilara turned, meeting Myra's gaze. The bridge hummed with the low thrum of their own ship's systems, a stark contrast to the void outside. Peace through stillness, Mira. The Zyron weren't listening to words. They were gearing for war, raiding colonies, ignoring the Accords. We gave them quiet to reflect. Kai snorted, leaning back in his chair. Reflect? More like a timeout from hell. But it bought us time. The council's envoys are inbound, they'll handle the cleanup. The plan had unraveled back on the asteroid outpost, when the Zyron ambush cut their comms and pinned them down. Ilara's initial evasion tactics, ducking through debris fields, had failed spectacularly, a stray shot shearing off their auxiliary thrusters. Kai's jury-rigged fix got them mobile, but it was Myra's insight into Zyron neural tech that sparked the adaptation. Not destruction, but disruption. A pulse tuned to their symbiotic implants, broadcasting a frequency that induced collective torpor. Human ingenuity, alien knowledge, teamwork forged in the fire of desperation. Now, as the USS Resolve limped toward the rendezvous point, Ilara felt the weight of it all. Her crew, down to skeleton shift after the skirmishes, moved with quiet efficiency. A lingering consequence hung in the air. The dampener's feedback loop had fried half their sensor array. They'd be blind to any follow-up threats for weeks, vulnerable in a galaxy that rarely forgave boldness. Mira approached, her steps deliberate on the grated floor. The council will question this. Stillness is not their way. They ordered negotiation, not neutralization. Ilara placed a hand on the railing, staring at the drifting wrecks. One striking image burned into her mind. A Zyron cruiser, its spines glinting like frozen thorns, crewed by warriors now adrift in enforced calm. Maybe it's time they learned ours. Peace isn't just words, it's the space to breathe without fear. Kai patched through a final scan, his voice breaking the tension. All clear, Cap. We're golden. As the stars wheeled by, Ilara allowed herself a small smile. The galaxy had demanded stillness from Earth. Instead, humanity had delivered it, on their terms. But the quiet left behind whispered of costs yet to come, a reminder that triumph was never without its echoes.